Ladies and gentlemen, this is an article that came out on February 14th, 2018, and this is from citylab.com. Don't blame economic despair for the opioid crisis. All right. America's devastating opioid plague is one of the biggest problems the country faces. More than 2.5 million Americans are currently addicted to powerful opioids. Drug deaths have shot up since 2010, raising some 28% in just the past year. And it goes up every year. It has been steadily going up every single year for the last 20 years. It has been no decline so far. All right, so with nearly 175 Americans losing their lives to opioids every day, one persistent narrative backed by a good deal of expert opinion is the plague is an outgrowth of deepening economic and geographic inequality with deaths of despair brought on by the lack of high paying family supporting jobs for working and middle class Americans who then turn to drugs to cope with the pain and distress of economic dislocation. Well, I knew when all the jobs started going overseas, I knew that was going to be a problem years down the line. But see, everybody is into, doing their job. And as long as this don't affect me, I don't care. But now it's affecting a lot of people here in America. A lot. Now there are so many people that can't get jobs because of their drug addiction, or they have jobs, and once the job notice they're losing productivity, they're kicking people out. It's really a bad situation here in America, as far as jobs are concerned. It's not as many manufacturing jobs because those jobs are now being done overseas. But see, back when it could have made a difference, if people would have said something even 10 or 20 years ago, people stayed silent. They didn't care. Cheap labor was more important than anything else. Now you got all these people over here on drugs, and they got every reason in the world to be on drugs. And again, there's no responsibility on the user. Every excuse, it's amazing. They didn't accept any of these excuses during the crack epidemic. All right. A recent Ember study provides new evidence that lagging economic conditions are not the primary explanation. The working paper author by Christopher Rum of the University of Virginia argues that the supply of these drugs is more significant cause than despair itself. To get at this, the study compares data on deaths from opioids to key indicators of local economic conditions and the availability of opioids in different places, as well as individual factors that have been shown to bear on drug deaths. It covers the decade and a half from 1999 to 2015, during which America saw the tremendous run up in opioid deaths. The study makes use of a large scale data set on drug deaths based on death certificate records from the multiple cause of death, files of the U.S. Center for Disease Control. The data includes information on overdose deaths involving both prescription and illicit opioids, as well as those due to drug poisoning, non drug suicides, and alcoholic liver disease. To capture local economic condition, the study looks at county level data on income, housing prices, unemployment, poverty, and international trade. It also includes a series of control variables for a wide range of individual characteristics that bear on opioid deaths, such as race, ethnicity, gender, and education. The rise in opioid deaths in hard hit places in Appalachia and the Rust Belt suggests a close connection with the despair wrought by economic decline. And it is true that the counties that experienced the most dramatic economic decline between 1999 and 2015 also saw the largest increase in opioid deaths. However, the correlation turns out to be weak once other factors are controlled for. Economic conditions explain less than 10% of the rise in opioid fatalities, according to the study. Perhaps the biggest hole in the case that economic distress cause opioid abuse is the fact that the drug plague has starkly worsened since 2010, even as the economy recovered from the Great Recession. If economic despair really was at work, we should have seen opioid use levels off as jobs were generated and the unemployment rate started to fall. But we haven't. Opioid deaths have skyrocketed in recent years, as the chart below shows. And you can see on this chart how it's gone on a steady increase for both prescription and illicit opioids. Wow, there is definitely no end in sight to this mess. It is really messed up out here. The study argues that it is the increasing availability of illegal opioids, and that's the stuff that's coming in from China, by the way. That's where damn near all of it is coming from into this country. That is the main factor in the surge in drug deaths since about 2010. All right, so now in years prior, doctors prescribed drugs like OxyContin liberally and widely for chronic pain. And the main places that got hit real hard from all of those prescriptions was the Rust Belt and the southern states. And that's where we're seeing a lot of problems, along with HIV and hepatitis is also high in those states as well. Some individuals were prescribed opioids, often simply because of severe pain, became addicted. However, as the plague grew, regulators and medical professionals started to tighten access to these drugs. And it's not making any difference because as long as you have the illegal drugs for people to fall back on, you're not going to put a dent in what's going on. And that's exactly what's happening. It's not decreasing because if they don't have access to the prescription, they're going to just simply go out to the street for the drug. All right, so I'm just going to go down a little. Chart below illustrates this, showing the huge spikes in deaths from illegal opioids among men, younger adults, and white people starting around 2010 or 2011. So if you look at this chart, you can clearly see the green line is indicating men and the blue is indicating women. And these are the deaths. So the men are definitely dying at a much faster pace than the women. All right, so while men have always died at higher rates than women, take a look at the huge gap in male versus female deaths starting around 2010. And you can clearly see it on the chart. Now, for the men, it looks like, yeah, about 2010. Yeah. All right, so the second chart shows a similar pattern for adults between the ages of 20 and 39. And if you look, the green line on the bottom is showing people 20 or less. The blue line, the lighter blue line, is showing people between 20 and 39. Okay, and the darker blue line is showing those that are between 40 and 59. And the dark green line is people that are 60 or older. And as you can see, the biggest group are the ones between 20 and 39 and 40 and 59 on opioids out here. Okay, the third chart is showing a pattern for white people versus African Americans, Hispanics, and other races. So as you can clearly see, the line in dark blue, which is the highest, those are your white people, which we know they're the biggest opioid users and the biggest ones dying from the opioids and illegal illicit drugs. Black people, that's a big gap between white and black people, by the way. Hispanics is next, and then other. Okay. All right. So they're generally saying in this whole thing not to blame the opioid plague on economic distress and start focusing on curbing the availability and use of these dangerous drugs. But I don't know how they're going to curb it when it's coming in through all the borders, and they have not even figured out how to even properly screen the packages. It is just impossible. You know, the manpower alone to do these things, along with pouring all kinds of money into these drug addicts, it will break the US. And still, Trump administration does nothing. They're not doing anything as far as this is concerned. And this picture, by the way, is of a drug addict that was unresponsive in a supermarket. And that is so commonplace now in the US, it's not even funny. These addicts are all over the public. If you haven't seen one, I'm sure you will see one soon. I have seen them out there. Please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell twice. And also join me on Black Junction TV and blackspot.com. And if you can support my channel by becoming a patron or making a donation through PayPal, I would deeply appreciate it. Peace, family.